And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great Stu Kohn. Stu, thank you very much for joining us.
I don't know if I can live up to that intro though, Gene. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. And it's been great, obviously, knowing you for such a long period of time, refereeing many of our matches, one of the best referees in the state of New Jersey, and just an overall overarching theme of excellence in the things that you do. So I'm honored that you're on our show and honored to have you as a friend.
Now you're really getting carried away.
Well, so let's take it from the top. Speak a little bit about your childhood, growing up, and some of the things that formed your personal mindset.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up kind of a latchkey kid, I'd say. I moved around a lot to, I guess, the point where my family kind of settled in East Brunswick, probably from mid-6th grade on. And, now I joke I only move a mile at a time because all my last 4 or 5 moves have all been in East Brunswick, kind of add a kid, add a bedroom. But I'm definitely done adding kids, maybe grandkids next. But I grew up in East Brunswick and think like everybody else, maybe a neighbor, friend, a kid in the neighborhood said, "Hey, how about going out for wrestling?" That was probably, I'd say, 7th grade was my first touch of wrestling, and I went through the motions. It was mildly successful, not Gene Cinetti status, but I held my own, but I enjoyed it. I wrestled a little bit in college at East Stroudsburg. Still kind of enjoyed the sport, and I think after I graduated college, I still kind of wanted to stay with the sport. And next thing you know, I was coaching rec, and next thing you know, I was coaching varsity at East Brunswick. Next thing you know, I was officiating, and that kind of stuck with me. So I've been officiating now, I think I want to say about 40 years. I hate to age myself, but also I see it coming to an end. It's a young man's game. But that's how I got the hook.
Excellent. And I remember you saying at one point in time that about the one of the best wrestling teams in the state works for you. Talk about that a little bit.
It's kind of true. Back in the day, Miller's had a good history of hiring wrestlers, and from wrestling comes opportunity differently for different people. For me, wrestling's been a lifeline for help. Strong guys, they're off in the summer. I'm busy in the summer. So I can remember some days back. Oh God, I don't want to age myself, but I guess it's back in the 90s. We had a squad of tent installers from Tommy Tanis and John Foster and Mark DiStefano. I'm sure you remember these names. Brian Min, Scott Camera. So, it used to be an ongoing joke. The best wrestling team in Middlesex County is Miller Rental.
That's awesome. And talk about your transition from wrestling in college into your career.
I would say, wrestling's a big part of me. It taught me about maintaining a balance, about priorities. That's a big thing with wrestling. It is a mindset. What you do is, invaluable. Like, so much of the mind game is overlooked. Everybody thinks it's lifting, running, training, technique. That is, but if you don't have your head in the right place, you're not going anywhere. So I've always tried to prioritize things of what's important, what should be done, and surround myself with the right people to get it done. I mean, you're nothing without the right people around you.
Makes sense. What are some of the big mental mistakes that you see people make in the business world, where maybe whether it's putting pressure on themselves, not focusing, anything like that?
I think you got to do your homework. I think you got to know any situation you get yourself into, know the room, be prepared. Just like today, you asked me if I'd be interested in speaking with you. So I did my homework. I went online. I watched some of your clips with other people. And I did kind of find it interesting how everybody worded it a little bit different. Everybody had a little bit different of an angle, but in reality, everybody was pretty much on track with the same principles. Do what you do it right. If you're not going to do something to the best of your ability, don't waste your time doing it. Anybody can do anything if you put your mind to it. And it's true. When I watch TV or I watch the news, I probably watch it a little differently than another person. I look at it as opportunity. If I see a big event coming, I think, they're going to need tents, they're going to need stages, and you can't be afraid to pick up the phone and go through the motions and reach out to people. If someone asks me, well, how'd you get, Rutgers, or how'd you get Radio City Music Hall or the Yankees as a customer? You know what? I I went after them. You don't have to necessarily be aggressive, but you have to be confident. There's a big difference, especially when it comes to wrestling, that I think kids and young people have to understand. There's a big difference between cocky and confidence. I don't consider myself a cocky person, but I consider myself a confident person. I know my skill set. I know the skill set of the people around me, and I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and I hate using the word cold call, but that's what it is. I'm not, you can't be afraid to do that. And you'll find, as big as the world is, it's not that big. It's a small network. It really is. It's incredible how often, you run around, you run in a circle, and you can play that geography game of separation, and there's going to be somebody that you both know and have a common connection. And another big thing that I stress to young people today, it's just so different today than when I grew up. When I grew up, we didn't have internet and social media, and today it's just a whole different world. You have so much knowledge at your fingertips. Just Google it. You can Google anything. You can YouTube anything. I mean, the other day I was struggling putting a refrigerator filter in, for the cold water. My wife said, "Hey, YouTube." Went to YouTube. Sure enough, there's my refrigerator. There's the filter, and there's some guy putting it in 25 seconds. That was frustrating me for 2 hours. So I think for young people, it's a good message. Take advantage of the tools around you. There's just so much out there. Use it, utilize it properly.
Right. Absolutely. And a lot of people are afraid to pick up the phone and make a cold call. And I think you hit on a really important point there, that there's usually some kind of connection you can make with the person, right? You're a human, you have experience. They're a human, they have experience. You might know someone, have been part of a certain club, had a certain shared experience. Talk about that a little bit, because that's a gold nugget of information for sale.
I kind of touched it real quick earlier, but do your homework. Like, if you find out, I don't know, we could pick anything. Gene Zanetti's opening up a wrestling club, and I'm thinking, hey, he might need some red carpets, some grand opening scissors. Do your homework. I'll Google Gene Zanetti. I'll find a little bit about him. So when I do call him, I know where he's coming from a little bit. Do your homework. Know the room. It's so important, and it'll help you. And don't be afraid to use your assets. You maybe go on LinkedIn and I see, hey, Gene and I have, 14 mutual connections. Maybe I'll pick one and give him a call and say, hey, what can you tell me about Gene Zanetti's grand opening? I want to be part of it. And it opens doors. I got a cold call email from yesterday. I get hundreds of them, but yesterday I was impressed by one. The guy did his homework. He went on LinkedIn. He saw we had a mutual connection. He used that in his email. So, what he did is he assured himself at least getting my attention. He secured, hey, I'm not going to blow this guy off. I kind of owe it to the mutual connection to show him a little respect. And it worked because the guy did his homework. It didn't go anywhere, but instead of me maybe just deleting that email, he got a response from me. Maybe not the response he wanted, but keep everything professional, and it pays dividends. I always find, if you got things going right for yourself, you don't have to blow your own horn. People are going to find it all on their own. It's stay humble. You especially in wrestling, do your work, stay humble. So much of what I do ties into what you do, but you saw a need for it. You saw an opportunity. You made a business of it. if you talk about a success story, it's you. You ran with an idea, and it's great. I'm totally, you impressed me.
Well, thank you. That's a high compliment. I don't look at myself as an innovator. I'm much more of just a synthesizer, seeing what works. Exactly what you said before. The successful people are saying the same thing. So it's a matter of just taking that and bringing it together. Success leaves the clues. It's just copy what other people have done. Don't reinvent the wheel.
It's all in the head, Gene.
That's awesome. So now with the cold calls, because I'm always intrigued by that, what are some of the big mistakes people make? Of course, not doing their homework ahead of time. What would be some other mistakes people would make either in a cold approach, not just a cold call, but a cold email where the person you can sense that this person doesn't really know what they're doing?
Don't go at things like half-heartedly. If you're going to do something, do it right. I try not to take anything on if I'm not going to do it right. If I don't have passion for it, it's not going to work for me. Stay away from it. Sell your assets. What makes you different than the next guy? Promise less, deliver more. It all ties in. I'd rather tell you I'm going to do A and B, but when I actually show up to do it, I'm going to do A, B, and surprise you with C. And that sets a cadence for people. They're going to remember down the road. What I do, people could use once in their lifetime or repeatedly. I'm not out for the one-hit wonder. I'm out for the long haul. Sometimes that might even be, working at below my normal cost or fees. But, if you can win a customer, you win the long battle. Anybody can win the battle. You want to win the war.
Exactly. Those are two dynamite mindsets right there that a lot of people look at it the opposite way. Like you said, being in it for the long haul as opposed to how do I make money right now? How do I capitalize? How do I squeeze as much juice out of this right now? That's one of the things a lot of people do. And the other thing I had here was you wrote about over deliver. You said over deliver. A lot of people will say, well, over promise. It's almost like the politicians. They over promise, they under deliver. Well, what you're saying, and I've heard other highly successful people say this, under promise and over deliver. So those are two maybe not so intuitive mindsets right there that the best are clearly doing.
Another important thing is, Gene, you have to win your own workspace. You can't win the marketplace if you don't win your own workspace. You have to respect your workers. I don't look at my workers as employees. I look at them as partners. I look at them as on my team, and I treat them that way. And that goes a long way. You gotta really remember you gotta give people more than a paycheck. You gotta make them feel a significance. And if they feel a significance, they're gonna care. It goes a long way. It really does.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't challenge you, just don't do it.
Right. Right. I think about you as a referee, having refereed so many of my matches, my brother's matches. I mean, I would think that would make you mentally tough. First of all, you'd have to be mentally tough to be a referee, and it would also contribute to making you more mentally tough because you're dealing with the booze, coaches, not the alcohol booze, the crowd booing. But yeah, it's just all of that's constantly being thrown at you, and to remain objective the whole time. Talk about that a little bit, that ability to remain objective despite all the emotions and all the chatter from many different voices.
I've always enjoyed, officiating. It's definitely challenging. I mean, it gets my mind off of work. You would think when I'm not working and want to get away from work, you wouldn't pick officiating wrestling, like you said, the booze and the haunting. You know what? It's not what you think. It's for me, it's enjoyment. It rolls off my back, and I know if I'm being fair and trying my best, and people are yelling and booing at you, it's the heat of the moment, and they're just maybe trying to get an edge. But when it's all over, for the most part, it's all forgotten and move on. I've never been that guy on the mat that gets nervous or anxious. I just ref every match like it's just like a practice match. I don't, whether it's the state finals or local dual meet, I kind of have the right same mindset. I don't get caught up in it. I just go out there and do my thing, and I enjoy it. I've met great people and great contacts and networking through wrestling. It's amazing how many people I've met through wrestling have become customers or referrals, and in my network, it's amazing. And like I said earlier, I've staffed my warehouse just from wrestling connections. If I look around the offices here, two offices over, I have a sales manager. Remember him wrestling for Baskin Ridge. One office over, I had an East Brunswick wrestler. At one time it was much more than this today. Kids have more options today. We'll say it's changed a little, but wrestling's opened up a lot of doors for me just by meeting people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could relate to that wholeheartedly in the business world. And it's fun. It's enjoyable. So you have that connection through wrestling, and then, you're making connections through their connections. It really is a great thing. One of the points that I wanted to harp on that you said about that we were just speaking about was there's a lot of people who just can't take the criticism or the howling and the heckling, not just as a referee, but just again in life. And being able to quiet down that noise is so important. And some people have never pushed themselves to go through it. And my question to you is going to be, what is your mindset to push through it? And you kind of gave the answer there by saying treating it the same. That's exactly the advice that I would recommend for the athletes competing in the NCAA tournament this week. You nailed it. Whether it's preseason, wrestle off, postseason, NCAA championship states, it doesn't matter. You're just treating it the same. Talk about that a little bit. That's huge.
I think people have a tendency, people in general, to overcomplicate things. Just break it down. Don't make things harder than they are. Usually anytime you're asked to do a task, someone else did it already. It's not as complicated as you think. Just take it in steps. A, B, C, D, done. I think people just overthink things, especially with a wrestling match. I can, relate to a wrestling. You're the wrestling guy. Just be prepared, go into that match like, hey, I can win this match. If you go on the mat not to lose, you're not going to win. You got to go on the mat to win. Same thing with my job, at work. I got to go at things and attack things like what makes this right for the company. Don't make it more difficult than it is. Just break it on down, do it right, and pieces will all come together.
You think people are focusing too much on the outcome or what other people are thinking about them, or what if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? What happened in the past? Like, what's blocking people from breaking it down and keeping it simple?
Mindset, no doubt. You have to have your head in the right place. Just prepare yourself. Surround yourself with the right tools, the right people. Just like training for wrestling, you should train for your job, even train for your family. Prioritize things. You can't think about your kids going to college when they're 17 years old. You got to think about your kids going to college when they're born. Life insurance. You got to think about life insurance when your kids are born. Premiums are a lot cheaper when someone's 1 and 2 than those premiums when someone's 30. Think about things in advance. You always have to plan for the day, for the short term, and the long term. And in doing all that, you can't forget about the past. The past shapes your future.
Right. It's like learn from the past and plan for the future. And then like 80% of your life has to be in the moment.
Well, when I say learn from the past, I'm kind of meaning, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. It's okay to fail and get back up and try again. But if you don't learn something from that and you do it the wrong way again, then you're kind of wasting your time. Like, I'm not afraid to fail. I've failed. I've overlooked things and they come back and haunt you. But I'm not going to make that mistake twice. At least I hope I'm not going to, or I don't I try to overcome it.
Right. It's like the smart person learns from their own mistakes. The wise person learns from other people's mistakes. Either way, you better be learning, right?
Well, we all just went through like a great example. We're all going through it now. It was this whole COVID Corona experience. You could look at that and look, no pun intended, pack up your tent and move on, or you can look at it as opportunity. You can't take COVID and say, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of that. Look at it like, what do people need during COVID? How do I adjust? How do I re-gear my business for COVID? That's exactly what we did. We thought about, hey, people aren't going to have special events. We're not going to be doing premieres. We're not going to be doing sporting events. What can we do? Can we do, outside dining? Can we do hospitals that might need COVID testing or COVID vaccinating stations? So, if you look at our business model here at Miller's, between now and 2 years ago, it almost looks like a different business. But, you got to look and seize the moment. What can I do to counteract the situation on hand? And like I said, you can cave, or you could fight. And, I like to think, choose to fight, make it right, make the best of that COVID situation. Although business is way different now, employees are still working, people are still getting a paycheck, we're still viable, we're still significant, and it's different. Maybe the coolness of doing a New York City premiere is not there, but the bottom line is, you're not working for that. You're working to keep people employed, and that aspect of it's working. So, we've been fortunate enough to think out of the box a little. Thinking out of the box is such a big thing, Gene. Like, you just got to let your mind, your creativity roll a little bit and talk to people. There's so many things you could do that they're just not ordinary. Follow your passion. If you have something you really like to do, how can you make that part of you? If you go to work every day and you love what you do, it's so much easier to get out of bed.
Absolutely. So many gold nuggets of information here. Stu, thank you. That's awesome. Last question. Where can people find more information on Miller's Rentals?
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. It's all about networking, Gene. Thanks for passing that along. Website's a great place to start, on social media. Our website's millersrentals.com. On Facebook, we're Miller's Rentals. We're on Instagram. Would love to hear from people. Love to talk to people. Love to rent to people. Keep them coming, Gene.
Absolutely. And personal shout out. Our family is using you guys for my brother's priestly ordination party. It's got to be outdoors due to COVID. So guess what? Miller's Rentals it is. So we're strong endorsement, high recommendation. Stu, thank you very much. We're going to drop all those links in the show notes. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care.